And
Mhm.
I very firmly believe science is part of culture. I know it to be true. I don't think of myself as doing outreach or education.
Mhm.
I don't like those labels.
Mhm.
I'm doing culture. An artist in their uh, studio working out problems, understanding materials, building a body of work. Nobody says to them when they exhibit, "Why are you doing outreach?"
Mhm.
Or "Are you doing education?" It's the logical extension. So I feel that if you've had the privilege of knowing some of these people, of seeing a little bit from the summit, if you've had a little glimpse yourself, that you bring it back to the world. So we, boom, exploded. Pioneerix became science and art. It's not artists who all do science or scientists who do art. It's real hardcore scientists talking about science and a lot of live events. We have a magazine called Broadcast where we feature all of the disciplines rubbing together, artists working on all kinds of things. When I first started doing events there, my first guest, like you, I was talking to people.
Mhm.
And this was like, I know how to talk to people because I know these guys. And I've been on the interviewee side so much. I know exactly, it was like fully formed for me how to do those
Mhm.
conversations.
Yeah, you're extremely
Um,
good at that also.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You learn how to do it too, though. I mean, I don't think the first one I did, I think I've learned, right? And you get better, which is really interesting. And I love to study. I think you do too. I really look into the material
Mhm.
I love science. I really do. I want to talk to a CRISPR biologist because I don't understand it and I want to understand it.
And I saw there's a bunch of cool events and very, very fascinating variety of humans.
Yes, we have a really fascinating variety of humans. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, so it made me it
Mhm.
put in my mental map of
Mhm.
like it's a cool place to go and visit when in New York.
Yes, you have to come see us. I think you would love it.
Also, I should mention fashion. I've seen you
Mhm.
do a bunch of talks, and there's a lot of fashion
Oh, yeah. Oh my god.
appreciation of fashion going on.
You're giving me an opportunity to give a shout out,
Mhm.
um, to Andrea Lauer, who's a, designer who makes these amazing jumpsuits that I often wear in a lot of my events. She has a jumpsuit, design line called Risen Division, and she just makes these incredible they're fantastic. We also design patches for all of our events, so there are these string theory patches and consciousness patches and
We should show this as overlays.
right?
Hopefully, there'll be nice
So,
pictures floating about everywhere.
so, I think all of this is just I just like to experiment with life. I think making the magazine was a big wild
You
experiment
said with life?
with life.
Nice.
Yeah. Um, this kind of idea that we were just describing is I find it hard to stop the momentum if I think I could make something. Um, I have to try to make it.
Mhm.
And to me, this is the closest I come to experimentation and collaboration. Because even though I collaborate theoretically, I have great collaborators, Brian Greene, Massimo Perotti, Dan Cabot. These are my really close collaborators. A lot of theoretical physics is alone and you're in your mind a lot. This is something that really was built, this triad of Dustin, Gabe, and I, and all the amazing people who work there and our amazing board. We really are doing it together. You take one element out and um, it starts to change shape. And that's a very interesting experience, I think. And making things is an interesting experience.
Since you mentioned literature, is there books that had an impact on your life, whether it's literature, fiction, nonfiction?
Mm. I love fiction, which I think people expect me to read a lot of sort of sci-fi or nonfiction. I mostly read fiction. I had a syllabus of great fiction writers that had science in it, and, I love that syllabus.
Can you ever make that public or no?
Yeah, I suppose I could, but I can tell you some of them as they come to mind. Katsuo Ishiguro, who won the Nobel Prize, wrote Remains of the Day, probably most famously. His book, Never Let Me Go, it's unbelievable, totally devastating, stunning. I say I really love literature, so when people can do that with these very abstract themes, it's sort of my favorite space for literature. Martin Amis wrote a book that runs backwards, Time's Arrow. I love some of his other books even more,
Mhm.
but Time's Arrow is pretty clever.
So you like it when these non-traditional mechanisms are applied to tell a story that's fundamentally human. that there's some
Yes.
some
And the
dramatic,
beauty of the
tragic.
language, like, I really appreciate that. Even Orwell is amazing, you know, Hitchens writing on Orwell is amazing. Um, there was some plays on the syllabus. I have to think of what else was in there, but there was one book that I think was kind of surprising that I think is an absolute masterpiece, which is The Road. And you might say, in what sense is The Road a science? Well, first of all, Cormac McCarthy absolutely loves scientists and science. And you can feel this very subtle influence in that book is it's a really remarkable, precise, stunning, ethereal, all of these things at once. And there's no who, what, where, when, or how. Um, you might guess it's a nuclear event that kicks off the book, or a lot of people know The Road, I think, from the movie, but really the book is magnificent. Um, and it's very, very abstract, but there's a sense to me in which it is science is structuring the
And
things.
still, fundamentally, that book is about the human story,
Yeah,
the human
absolutely. The
connection.
boy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the science plays a role in creating the world,
Mhm.
and within it, there's still really it's a different way to explore human dynamics in a way that's maybe lands some clarity and depth that maybe a more direct telling of the
Yeah.
story will not. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even surreal worlds that, I mean, to me, I don't know why, but I return to Orwell's Animal Farm a lot, and there's these kind of like, it's another art form to be able to tell a simple story with some surreal elements.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, just simple language.
Mhm. Oh, Animal Farm's incredible. In fact, some of the I've kind of played with, you know, some animals are more equal than others. There are in Gödel Turing's work, there were some infinities that are bigger than others.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certain books just kind of inject themselves into our culture in a way that just reverberates and I don't know, hasn't creates culture, not just like
Oh,
influences. It's
yeah.
just like
Mhm.
it's quite incredible how
Mhm.
writing and
Mhm.
literature can do that.
Yeah.
If you could have one definitive answer to one single question, this is the thing I
Oh, this
mentioned
is
to you.
so hard.
Yeah. Well, there's an oracle, and you get to talk to that oracle. You can ask multiple questions, but it has to be on that topic. So to just clarify,
Hmm.
what mystery of the universe would you want that oracle to help you with?
You know, it's funny. I should say the obvious thing, but I almost feel like it would be greedy. I think of a complicated response to this. The obvious thing for me to say would be, I want to understand quantum gravity, or if gravity's emergent. It's not even something I work on day to day. You know, I mostly just look with interest at what others are doing, and if I think I can jump in, I would, but I'm not jumping into the fray. But obviously, that's the big one,
Mhm.
and there is a sort of sense that with that will come the answers to all these other things. My complicated relationship is that, well, you know, part of the scientific disposition isn't having stuff you don't know the answer to. I mean, we're not gonna have all the answers, I hope, because then then what? Right? It's sort of dystopian.
I totally agree with you. I like the mysteries we have.
Yeah.
I kind of had this assumption that there will always be mysteries, so you want to keep
Right.
solving them.
They will lead to more. In the same way that relativity led to black holes led to the information loss paradox or the Big Bang or what happened before or the multiverse. It's because we learned so much we were able to escalate to the next level
Mhm.
of abstraction
Yeah, by
and
the way,
questioning.
we should mention that if you're talking to this oracle, and even if you ask the obvious question about quantum gravity,
Mhm.
I almost guarantee with 100% probability that even if all your questions are answered,
Mhm.
it's impossible to get to the end of your questions
Right.
because it says, the oracle will say, no, you can't unify.
Then you say, "Well, wait."
Well, yeah, yeah, and then
Then
you say
what?
emergent, and then the oracle say, well, everything you think is fundamental is not; it's emergent.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, well, this
Mhm.
is we need to. There's
Right.
more questions.
That's right. I mean, it's been 100 years more since relativity, and we're still picking it apart.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, and there
Mhm.
may be new ones.
Mhm.
You write that eventually all our history in this universe will be erased.
Hmm.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's a tough thought, but again, I think there's a way in which we can come to terms with that that's kind of poetic. You know, you build something in the sand and then you erase it. So I
Yeah.
think it's just a reminder that we have to be concerned about our immediate experience too, right? How we are to those around us, how they are to us, what we leave behind in the near term, what we leave behind in the long term. Have we contributed and did we, did we contribute overall net positive? um, Eventually, I think it's kind of hard to imagine. But yes, all of these Nobel Prizes, all of these mathematical proofs, all of these conversations, all of these ideas, all the influence we have on each other, even the AI eventually will expire.